Namaste. Welcome to my Advent calendar, day 16. Lovely to have you here, beautiful souls. My name is Sadhana, and this is called The Den Within. As the days grow shorter, we feel the quiet drop softly into each cell of our being. We turn ourselves into rest and integrate the year. The deeper we dive within our edges, the slower we can find it there. Silence and stillness, helpful friends, while healing dismantles the old and makes space for the birth of the new. The invitation is to stay there in the silence, the slow, the freeze, the winter den within you. Maybe, dear busy 21st century soul, the doing is done for now. And if you're holding space for others, and mamas, that's you too, consider that what you don't do, say, share, create, push, post, or sprint towards might be just as sacred as what you do. It is time. It's a time to fall in love with the unsaid, the unseen, the undone. Let your being do its thing. Then you'll know it's real. It's not all on Instagram. It's much holier than that. Trust the season. Trust the process. Trust the knowing within. That says hibernation and its secrets are a good thing. And the surname of this poet is Balfour. This is from this year's Wee Moon. The first name is Xochi. Isn't that beautiful? It's, the den within. All right, so for this morning's reading, I thought I would focus on that energy and acknowledge that the moon is waning. And as we move towards Christmas, through the remainder of these days together, the moon will be waning. And so this is a time of slowing. It's a time of reflection. It's a time of doing less. Integrating, letting enough be enough. We need not do more. And in what way might you incorporate that in your life? So if you think about this in terms of, you could ask this question in terms of your work today or tomorrow, something that you're organizing for the family. How could I let what I've already done be enough? And find yourself contented with not doing more. I'm reading from the Fyodor Pavlov Tarot this morning. I had a lovely discussion with Jonathan Daly some time back about this deck. Let this reading give us guidance supported by the energy of the den within, the waning moon, helping us to find places where indeed we can not do, not share, not create, not perform. And as always, I ask this message be in the highest for the greatest good, and that no harm be done. So be it. Hello, welcome to Arya and Saskia. And that might mean doing it differently. Being inspired by a new way. Maybe somebody you saw on social media. Maybe a remembering of a way that a grandmother used to be. It's an opportunity to find joy in doing it in a new way. The Four of Cups and the Fool with their back to the Four of Cups says something that choosing to, let's say there's a gathering this week. Maybe you have a gathering this week after work, or that you have hummed and hawed about not attending, and you're wondering if it is maybe you have a tendency to seasonal affective disorder. I know a lot of people have a hard time in the winter months. It can be really challenging when there is less light, and it can create a moodiness, and it can exacerbate depression, all kinds of things, and both clinical and a looser term of that word. However, the Fool, there's two pieces here. One is that the Fool steps out of that and knows that maybe they don't go to that event, but they go for a solo walk, or they go and they meander through some thrift stores. They do something completely different and on their own that they wouldn't have given themselves permission to do in the past. So there's that piece. However, I never want to emphasize the importance of the Four of Cups in a safe space to be in your feelings. To be, and there was something really beautiful in the poem that stated this experience. As and integrate the year, the deeper we dive within our edges, the slower we can find it there. maybe that's what I was thinking of, but we get comfortable being within. And that sacred space is the sacred space of our temple, our being, and also the sacred space of being alone and being with our feelings. And when when you decide to step out of that and do it in your own way, perhaps after a time of contemplation and rest and giving yourself permission to be alone, then you feel differently. There's a sense of regaining a light. So in order to light the flame, in order to feel a little stronger within, we need to go within first. So what can happen is if we don't go in deeper within the edges and we just live on the surface, it feels as if we're losing a piece of us. But if we actually go within and feel and experience and acknowledge the sadness, the aloneness, the sorrow, then we've given ourselves space to be in that and to feel that, which allows us and gives us the strength to step out in our own way. Meeting our complete self. Meeting our complete self. Our beautiful, divine, masculine self. And our powerful, feminine self. So my friends, give yourself permission to withdraw. It's an immensely healing experience. And know that it is okay to do less. Thank you. Yesterday, I shared with you some decks that I had trimmed and which made them little and easy for travel, and they were very they're just lovely. And they're also the kind of deck that, well, many of them were Los Scarabeo decks, so those multi-language borders they're very distracting, especially when the art is so beautiful in the card. And so the ones that I had showed you removed all or most of the borders. Well, today I want to show you some decks where I actually love the borders and would never cut off the edges. And one of my favorite things is when the art dances over the border. The art spills off the border or through the border, and you can see in the Four of Cups how the knee of the fellow is over the border and the foot of the fool. And I'm going to show you a few other decks this morning where the art, and sometimes it's not extreme, but it's it's very creative. And it's not in every card. And again, this is the Fyodor Pavlov Tarot. And when I see a deck where the art spills over the border, I'll show you a different one that does something different. This is a borderless deck that still makes great use of white space. So often when there's a borderless deck, and this one, the artist has cleverly disguised some of the cards that actually have a white border. You have to be at least I have to be in the mood to read a deck that where the art comes all the way to the border and there's a lot of intensity on the deck. And one of my favorite things also is a lot of white space in decks. So this one checks off a box in a couple of places, and this is one of my favorite cards in the deck. I love how this Knight of Swords just leaves the page. Let me find you another example. I think in some of the, hi Amelia, in some of the cards, the art is taken all the way to the edge, but there's still ample white space to breathe. And when you have several cards on the table, that white space for me is really important. This one's not the best example. Let's look at... This is the Llewellyn version. Morning, Magdalena. Of the Gaian Tarot. And you can see how that hand... This is also one of my favorite cards in this deck. This is the Nine of Air. Love how she's listening to the tree, but her hand goes over the border. And you'll see again, not in every card. So this is a very conscious thing from if you've ever done art and you know the process and why decks actually have borders and the planning of the bleed and so forth. This takes a lot more time and a lot more energy to create a deck that does this. And I love it aesthetically, but also appreciate the intention of the artist. You can see here just little bits. Fingers going off. And so, of course, I would never trim a deck that did this. And the white space, it has it creates a frame. And there's something about the idea of a frame that holds the artwork and features the artwork. This is probably my favorite Lenormand deck, and this technique is done so well in this deck. This is the Anna K. Lenormand, and just look at this card. This is the letter. It's just so beautiful how you've got the cloud in the top that spills over the border and the snow in the bottom, and then you still see the frame for the art. I love that description, Amelia. That's beautiful. And so I want to ask you a favor, and that is if you have any decks where the artwork spills over the border, would you please let me know? I would appreciate it. Not that I'm going to rush out and buy them all, but it's something that really captures my attention. And there are reasons, and so there are reasons for not taking off the borders of a deck. I know there is a trend to trim and edge and personalize your decks, and there's reasons for doing that. Like I said, maybe you want to cut off the copyrights, or you want to cut off all the multiple languages around the borders, or there's something about the borders that really do not enhance the artwork. And I know there is sometimes it just feels that you can free the artwork from the borders, or the artwork pops once you cut off the edges. And you do get that feeling sometimes. But there's also this importance of borders, and there are some decks that I would never cut off the borders, and this is one of them. I read with this the other day. This is the Enchanted Tarot. And it is an enormous deck, and the borders are quite substantial. And in cutting off the borders, you certainly would reduce the size of the cards if that was an issue. However, there's just something intrinsic with the borders. So yeah, so this is one I'm very happy it has a frame. Okay, I'm just going to grab a different deck. This is the Tarot Avatara. Many videos, long deep dive in my deck, in my on my channel if you're interested in spending more time with this. This is a deck by Gabby Angus West. My tarot tip for today is this. When you open a new deck, one of my first steps is to choose a favorite and a least favorite card. And I'm just going to do that right now. These two questions, or these two choices, tell you a lot about yourself. They tell you about your comfort levels in working with a deck. And so your favorite card. So in choosing your favorite card, it's like your safe space, and you acknowledge the aspects of a deck that you're comfortable reading with. In choosing least favorite cards, and there may be more than one in a deck, and I know in this deck there's probably about 4 or 5 of them that I could have put face up. One is Diego as a real lech, and there's a couple of Frida cards that are also immensely uncomfortable for me, and this is one of them as the Ace of Cups. And the aspect of it that is uncomfortable is just this really bizarre, on the surface, take on the Ace of Cups. I mean, there's a bird drinking from her breasts. There are 2 Fridas with these obnoxious tongues sticking out, sharing a cup. Looks more like a 2 of cups and an Ace of Cups. So on several levels, the card is not my favorite, and it's confusing. I don't understand it. And when a card, and it's the least favorite cards that have the greatest to teach you, and the cards that you, in spending more time with them, are going to learn more about yourself and learn more about the energy of that particular card. granted, the creator may be stepping outside of the structure of the tarot that you are familiar with. But there's always something in those cards that kind of might even make the hair on your skin stand up. It's really something how they can, if you give them the time, have great lessons and wonderful things to teach you. And so, yeah, what I do is I make a note of these cards, and when I am later on, when I've come back and spent time with the deck, they may never be my best of friends, but they've been great guides into deconstructing that tarot deck and understanding something new about the tarot. Yeah. So it's not just about your favorites. Make sure you spend time lingering on your least favorite cards. All right. Happy Monday. And I will see you tomorrow for day 17. Thank you, everybody. Take good care. Namaste.